Ladies and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harret Shun Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harret Shun Calfunny, As I Learn, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.
ETM Hotel, Rennie, Sean. Welcome in peace. My name is Sean. Thank everybody for tuning in. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. For the listening audience, I appreciate you showing up. Appreciate your time, your views, everything else that y'all get into. Appreciate it. Salute to you. Those of you who may catch it on the replay, appreciate you too. Let me just say this right now. We are not going to stop misinformation successfully without more people astute in trying to counter the ignorance. Misinformation spread faster because it sounds good. It sounds plausible. It's anti-something. Whether it's the establishment, the government, the status quo, personalities, whatever it is, misinformation spreads as rapidly as it does because it is counterintuitive against the status quo. It is intentionally trying to do things. At the onset of a conversation that Unc had in 2019, in a debate with Robert F. Kennedy and Buddy that made Vax, uh, Dale Bigtree. I realized when I watched the debate online and saw Netta in the crowd that it was a Eurocentric event, that there was a handful, you could count how many Black people were actually at this debate about vaccines. At that moment, Dale Bigtree, Robert F. Kennedy, they had already organized a rally regarding immunizing people for MMR because of a Brooklyn outbreak in a Jewish community where somebody flew in from, left out of town, came back. Went out of the country, came back in the country, and with measles, and it began to spread rapidly in that community. Well, New York, being on the defense, they decided to immunize the community. These were Jewish people. They were against immunization. However, they vaccinated everyone, got it under control, and MMR didn't spread. At the same time that Unk's having a debate with Dale Bigtree and his pep rally crowd, and Asar and Garfield and Unbiased, Samoa, a little small island in the East Pacific somewhere, was having an outbreak of its own. At the same time that they were administering MMR shots trying to get the pandemic under control, a nurse slips up intentionally and gives one of the children a steroid uh, concoction. It wasn't the vaccine. It was mixed wrong. It ended up taking two children's lives because both children was administered that dose. So they paused the vaccination program. The measles began to run rampant throughout the Samoa community. More children was fearful and died. They tried to get everything under control. And in the meantime, they were investigating what happened. They blamed the damn vaccine. And all in all, when all the evidence came out, it was a bad batch administered to two children and no one else, to two children, and it was intentionally mixed incorrectly. Investigation and science brought out the misrepresentation of science in the woman. They even had a dude over there that was speaking anti-vaccine rhetoric while children were at risk and dying. And they had to vaccinate 93% of the people in order to get that outbreak under control. This is happening the same time that Unc is arguing or debating with Dale Bigtree, who's not a scientist, and his cronies, and one doctor who was not anti-vaccine, who had an issue with the way vaccines was administered. He said he's looking for a safer way. What that showed me was, and I say this all the time, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, the meaning of white privilege. The moment that white privilege feels threatened by something, they ramp up the rhetoric. And all the super pro-black, super RBG, super comedics, Hebrews, and therefore all the cronies, all the crazy people in the community. That's what I'm calling them. All the crazy people in the community they begin to be anti-science. So what do they look to be anti-science? They put down their pro-black cards and go bring us Eurocentric, bad, not smart, not smart Europeans, not smart Americans. No, not the smart scientists and doctors. No, they bring us anti-establishment. They bring us the dumb people, not the smart ones, the dumb people, not the intellectuals, the ignorant, not the people that's in the lab, the people who wear a coat and may deal with some children, maybe cow practice, maybe something else. We cannot fight the battle if it's only a few of us. It has to be a joint effort in order to refute information that spews out. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. I just wanted to kind of get that out at the beginning and let people come in. I know that, like we said on Dr. Ma's show, I'm not going to get 100 people in the building, or 5,000 people, or 10,000, or a million people watching the videos, because this is talking about something serious that's not named polite. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. We're in an information pandemic and a pandemic. We're in two pandemics. We're fighting for the hearts and minds of our brothers and sisters and the likes around the world, and we're being handed down so much rhetoric from so many different point of views that it can't be controlled. I was in a TikTok video this morning. I really didn't want to get into the TikTok video. It was a politician, a religious politician at that, speaking his case. I listened to it. He said some things that was kind of in line, and then it strayed away like they all do. And then I was like, ah. So I got my mind together. I listened to it again. One person in 2 minutes and 54 seconds require me to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 sources to counter a 2 minute and 54-second conversation with who we don't know, when we don't know that we don't know when this happened, or where we don't know the location. I don't even know the person's name, but it was a TikTok video and it was sent to someone, and that someone sent it to me. We already got another person that we have to deal with that's going viral right now, people sharing that ignorant stuff, but that's another topic. And I put that on the back burner. I'm supposed to be doing a show today about our brother Sit Down, Kevin Chill Heard, but unfortunately, I'm abruptly interrupted by ignorance. And the sad part about all of this is this: I can't even get into our brother Chill's bill because of other misinformation. I don't even get paid for this. I just take time out my day to address certain things on my off days when I could be just sleep, lazy, not doing nothing. Although I folded my clothes and I know I got to go to the bank and I'm trying to let traffic die down, and my son got to go, he got to go to work. I already took my kids to school. I mean, come on. I was up to like 2. I was right back up at 6. I still need to read. There's some things that I could be doing, but here I am. So I appreciate everybody joining the conversation. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. We'll move forward. Um, we pay you with love. Yeah, Juju, I know. Um, what up, Sosa? What up from West Africa, Omar? What's good, Charles? Mongo. Um, Mike Shabazz, what's good? Chavez, Keenan, what up? Everything is everything. What's good? Brother Zane. Um, what you apologizing for? Keenan got what did Keenan get into? Oh, Kadeem. Oh, okay. You talking to Zane. Nah, whatever, man. What you listen, we over that. We bust back, we cool. Nah, it's true. Let that stuff go. All right, so um let's get into the conversation. Again, let me put this disclaimer up. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use and purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright. Let me put it back up. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit educational or purpose use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Fair use. All right, so let's get into it, man. What up, Comedic Line? What's good? What's going on? Up to 20? Yeah, there might be a couple of shows today. But let me share my screen. First, let me what up, Brandon? What's good? See, I ain't even started the show. I went on a rant, and then next thing you know, more people jumped in the building. See that? See how that work? Now people gonna know what's going on. First thing first, all the sources are in the description, so I'm not really gonna spend a lot of time on some stuff. But people want to elaborate, I do provide that information for you. So no physicians disciplined for COVID falsehoods. I think people ought to know that this is published in MedPage. Of course, I get these emails every day. Basically, it talks about 20 physicians in particular who peddle misinformation and falsehoods. That's not to say that the complaints haven't been filed. So, people are filing complaints. There's elements of confidentiality within those complaint filings. Physicians are contacting people. But look at this list real quick. This means physicians who had advanced false information includes Simone Gold, we dealt with her, Scott Atlas, Joseph Mercola, he's in my book, Lee Merritt, Sherry Tenpenny is in my book, Stella Emanuel. They're free to continue to misinform patients and the public while the spread of the Delta variant is going around. This is a really big deal, and they do need to be reprimanded. Especially Tenpenny. She's made a killing. She's made more money than gold by spreading misinformation. McCullough too. All of them have. So they found a lane to be able to provide a way for their family. They fundraise. They do these little things and fundraise, and they make hella money. Like they're making millions of dollars. They already got a practice, but they make millions of dollars misinforming people. So we'll see what comes of that. If you want to know more about it, the article's in the description. I don't want to spend too much of my time dealing with these people and their claims. I deal with a lot of this stuff in the book, but even Rand Paul. So if you have access to it, sign up. It's free. Get the emails every day like I do. You keep you abreast of COVID information, and it helps everything out. All right, so I just want to breeze through that real quick. If you're confused about a third dose, our local epidemiologist is too. I'm not going to read all of this. I just want to kind of give you the gist of where I am with this whole third vaccine thing. Until hospitalizations and death increase in the vaccinated group, and the unvaccinated hospitalization and death rate decreases from 90 something percent down to like 85, 80, or 75, somewhere around there, then I'm gonna be worried until those numbers change. As you know, as long as they're at 98, 96, 95, or 91, above, I'm not tripping on that. The reason that I'm not tripping on that is because the vaccine is doing its job. It's working well. Even with the Delta variant swirling around, the vaccine is doing its job to prevent hospitalization, the spread of disease, and death in a high majority. Remember, vaccine efficacy just needed to be above 50%, 60%, right? Um, So we just want to make sure that. Now, I was in a conversation where the chick said this yesterday. She brought up this 86% or whatever she was trying to say. She really had the data all wrong. Um, right here, look, they had a study right here in New York between May and July, and showed the effectiveness of against the hospitalization stable over time, and it ranged between 91 and 95%. The second study was March to July. They found no decline in the vaccine effectiveness against hospitalization. The vaccine efficacy didn't change based on time vaccination. Vaccine effectiveness was 86% in 2 to 12 weeks after vaccination and 84% 13 to 24 weeks. It also didn't matter whether you were high risk, 65 plus, immunocompromised, or multiple comorbidities. And then here's a chart. All right. Now, they did have questions regarding mild to moderate disease in the UK study, and there was a first in the Israel study, right? So they did those two studies, but we had our own Minnesota Mayo Clinic, and they found the efficacy was reduced in July compared to the earlier months, right? A second study from the CDC released today using data among New Yorkers from May 3rd to the 25th, vaccine effectiveness against overall infection declined from 91 to 78%. The overall infection, remember, the vaccine doesn't prevent infection, it prevents the disease, hospitalization, death. But you will see the vaccine preventing infection or stopping infection or being effective against infection in a lot of instances. And so they said it declined from 91% to 78%. There was a third study that found a decrease even more dramatic among nursing home residents from 74 to 53%, which is still above the threshold. However, this is where you're getting this whole booster thing from, is because they're trying to stay spoiled in the 90 percentile range. But you don't give booster shots to fight against this virus. You vaccinate more people. You vaccinate more people. I'm not the one saying, I'm not saying this just to be saying it. You know, one of the lead biologists, Vincent Racaniello, he's saying this. Amy, she's saying this. There's a lot of virologists that are saying this because they study viruses. You vaccinate. You continue to vaccinate. You know, if we're at 80, 90% of our population vaccinated against a virus, then we subside the sicknesses and we turn this thing into what some call, there was a video I was watching by a doctor, I forget his name, Chavis in it, but a couple people sent me videos that he just basically said, let's turn COVID into basically a common cold, the effects. But you only do that, it takes time. But you only do that by vaccinating. And at the end of the video, he basically said everybody need to get vaccinated, period, point blank. You won't find an epidemiologist or a virologist telling you not to be vaccinated. All right. So why do we need a third dose? Well, to be honest, the people that need a third dose would be the immunocompromised. If you watched the show yesterday, we talked about the immunocompromised and their inability to be able to maintain some type of protection against these different variants. It makes them susceptible to things. Now, you could use monoclonal antibodies to treat them, but monoclonal antibodies warn they don't last a while, and new infections can cause more issues. Plus, we found out yesterday, right? Well, if you were paying attention, that immunocompromised, once infected, and they're trying to, do these treatments and things of that nature, the virus tends to mutate, and different variants tend to accumulate in the immunocompromised, and has certain scientists hypothesizing that these new variants must have been triggered by those who were immunocompromised. This is just a hypothesis. Okay. They haven't written any articles or made a substantial, they came out with facts or anything like that. You heard me say it yesterday during the JAMA study or the JAMA review in the last conversation. What up, Teddy? Rise of consciousness, peace to you. No, that would be false. The new variants did not come after the vaccine. The new variants come, and we're going to talk about that. New variants occur during adaptation when they have the ability to mutate in places that the viruses were not at before. So that will be a false assertion that the variants didn't come until the vaccine. That's false, because the vaccines stop the spread of it's killing the virus before we even got to these last few variants. So you gotta, well, I ain't gonna entertain the chat. I'm gonna let science speak, so we all can learn something right here. So anyway, your local epidemiologist concludes that this is probably more than you ever wanted to know. A third dose is coming for you. I'm not convinced. Stay healthy. I'd rather give it to another person in the country. I'm just letting you know right now, I got 2 doses. I'm not going to take a third shot. I'm not going to take a third vaccine right now. And the reason why I'm not going to take a third vaccine is because the protection is so good. The data is telling me not to take one. I'm not going to panic. I know what the White House is arguing. I know what other people are arguing. They're seeing breakthrough infections, and they're seeing a small size of those people being hospitalized or potentially may die because of some type of breakthrough. But it's not, when I say small, it ain't even in the tens of thousands compared to 170 million vaccinated. Oh, by the way, they vaccinated 1 million people like one of these last couple of days. That was the highest since the slowdown, because people getting vaccinated. And then you have people saying they're waiting on approval. So let's get into our show. Before I do anything, I got to start with our show. I just wanted to hit y'all off with that information right there.
Yo, talk to me, Cleveland. Have you not had your shot yet? Really? Are you serious? I know you're worried. You're thinking it's going to be like another Tuskegee? I get it. They've been doing black people dirty for years. So why wouldn't we be concerned this time? Here's the situation, people. At Tuskegee, they did not give us the disease, but what they didn't do was give us the cure. But by not taking this vaccine, we're Tuskegeeing ourselves. The truth is, if we don't protect ourselves, nobody will. We're at over 150 million people vaccinated. And if your doctor and your mother haven't turned into zombies by now, then you won't either. The truth, man, he got it, grip my head. Okay, that's it. That was no. He was like,
I'm trying to balance you so you can hold your head.
Jeff, I can balance my own.
I appreciate that, Chill. So let's get into this bill. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video twice. It's 2 minutes and 54 seconds. The reason that I'm going to play it twice is because you may miss something the first time that you hear it, and I want to address it. Okay, so it says, I don't know who this is, and I don't know if this is that person, but whoever this is shared it, all right, or whatever. I don't know, made it.
Heard a virologist on television, TV6 News, last night mentioned this, and called viral immune escape. And in a nutshell, viral immune escape is this. When you put a virus under pressure through a mass vaccination program, the vaccine-induced antibodies will stand up against the COVID-19 virus and fight it. And so the virus is on the run. Once a virus gets on the run, remember this virus is a virus that is specially, it has gain-of-function properties. Yes. You put it under pressure, it changes, it shifts, it changes its cloak, it looks different. Wow. Amen. It becomes a variant. Wow. And the variant cannot be stopped by the vaccine-induced antibodies. Vaccine-induced antibodies also shut down your innate immune system. So the vaccinated have vaccine-induced antibodies that cannot stop a variant, and then they also shut down your innate immune system. So variants can come through and infect those who are vaccinated. That is viral immune escape. And that says that the vaccinated are defenseless against variants. This is no longer a pandemic of COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2. This is a pandemic of variants. Amen. And there is something called recombination. Listen to me carefully. Why aren't our virologists telling us this? Amen. Recombination means that a vaccinated host can be infected by more than one variant at one time. Oh, big deal. Delta variant is in Trinidad. You heard that? Amen. Well, Dr. Peter McCullough says, they don't have enough letters in the Greek alphabet to name the variants. Amen. In fact, there are over 100 variants already floating around all over the globe.
Remember this at the 136 or 136 mark, he mentions Peter McCullough. We dealt with him. And I'm going to remind y'all of that. But we dealt with Peter McCullough. That's one.
Some put it as 185. If a vaccinated host is infected, co-infected by more than one variant, the variants, when they get inside, they have a little party, and they mix, and they change DNA, and they camouflage, and they mix their DNA. The recombinant DNA technology takes place, and it produces a super variant. Yeah. Amen. And if super variants are produced, nothing can stop them. And already they are saying that I think the latest variant to come out is vaccine resistant. Well, this is just the beginning. Dr. Gert van den Bosch warns. He said, if we do not immediately stop mass vaccination.
Toward the end of the video, he mentions a second person, Dr. Van den Bosch. Now, I really ignored him, but we're going to deal with him too.
Campaigns all around the world will experience an international catastrophe of mass mortality. I didn't say that, he did. The vaccinated are a threat to us all. However, amen, we must treat the vaccinated kindly, amen, with great empathy, amen, with prayer, amen, and with humanity and love, amen. Thank you, my brother, amen. So no discrimination against the vaccinated. That's right. Amen. So yes.
I'm gonna play it again for y'all.
Heard a virologist on television, TV6 News, last night mentioned this, and called viral immune escape. And in a nutshell, viral immune escape is this. When you put a virus under pressure through a mass vaccination program, the vaccine-induced antibodies will stand up against the COVID-19 virus and fight it. And so the virus is on the run. Once a virus gets on the run, remember this virus is a virus that is specially, it has gain-of-function properties. Yes. You put it under pressure, it changes, it shifts, it changes its cloak, it looks different. Wow. amen, it becomes a variant. And the variant cannot be stopped by the vaccine-induced antibodies. Vaccine-induced antibodies also shut down your innate immune system. So the vaccinated have vaccine-induced antibodies that cannot stop a variant, and then they also shut down your innate immune system. So variants can come straight through and infect those who are vaccinated. That is viral immune escape. And that says that the vaccinated are defenseless against variants. This is no longer a pandemic of COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2. This is a pandemic of variants. Amen. And there is something called recombination. Listen to me carefully. Why aren't our virologists telling us this? Amen. Recombination means that a vaccinated host can be infected by more than one variant at one time. Oh, big deal. Delta variant is in Trinidad. You heard that? Amen. Well, Dr. Peter McCullough says, they don't have enough letters in the Greek alphabet to name the variants. Amen. In fact, there are over 100 variants already floating around all over the globe. Some put it as 185. If a vaccinated host is infected, co-infected by more than one variant, the variants, when they get inside, they have a little party and they mix and they change DNA and they camouflage and they mix their DNA. The recombinant DNA technology takes place and it produces a super variant. Amen. And if super variants are produced, nothing can stop them. And already they are saying that I think the latest variant to come out is vaccine resistant. Well, this is just the beginning. Dr. Gert van den Bosch warns. He said, if we do not immediately stop mass vaccination campaigns all around the world will experience an international catastrophe of mass mortality. I didn't say that, he did. The vaccinated are a threat to us all. However, amen, we must treat the vaccinated kindly, amen, with great empathy, amen.
The vaccinated are a threat to us all. So 170 million fully vaccinated people are now in America a threat to the 160 million people that are still unvaccinated. Way to go, whoever you are. If somebody in the chat know who this dude is, you can let me know. So let's start the walking. This was published by Dr. Kavanaugh, MD. It's from Infection Control Today. He said, let's take a stand now to stop COVID-19 variants. He says herd immunity is no longer possible. Now, you may have heard this, or you may have not heard it, but you may have seen this on my Facebook page. Something similar to this by Dr. James Hildreth, right? The African-American, one of the lead African-American epidemiologists. And he is a part of the FDA commission and board that votes on the approval of vaccines. And he's also doing some stuff for the White House as well. He heads the medical department at Fisk University and Vanderbilt. Yeah. And he has a Nobel Peace Prize in HIV research and information regarding that subject matter. So anyway, herd immunity is no longer possible. The virus is mutating and likely has animal hosts. We must raise the bar on public health outcomes, not only focusing on deaths, but also morbidity and long hauler syndromes, which can be all too common, even occurring with vaccine breakthrough infections. So in the article, Dr. Kavanaugh says that one can never predict how much difference a year would make in understanding COVID-19. Currently, it is almost impossible to have a conversation without bringing up the subject of variants. For most of last year, we were in almost total denial of the dangers of COVID-19 variants and the ability of COVID-19 to mutate. SARS-CoV-2, the virus which causes COVID-19, is an RNA virus. We all know that RNA viruses are known to mutate, and mutation can cause variants. A variant is created when a meaningful change occurs in the infectivity or lethality of the virus. Mutations which modify the virus spike protein can cause meaningful changes in both transmissibility and disease severity. Spike proteins are numerous projections which surround the virus capsule and are used to attach the virus to the host cell's ACE2 receptor. The original SARS-CoV-2 virus was detected in Wuhan, blah, 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 right? So pretty much the reason why I came here is to give you an outline of what the variants are. But in his paper, he talks about the transmissibilities, the different variants, and where they're located, as you can see down here. And he gives you a chart of the variants. Now, alpha, beta, delta, delta plus, epsilon, gamma, iota, kappa, lambda, and the B1621, which I mentioned last night, which was originally found in Colombia, has not been named yet. It has shown up in America. It has shown up. It has shown up in the U.S. It is shown up also in the U.K. All right. So we talked about that one. That one's not named yet. However, in the conversation that you just heard from this gentleman, he said there's 100 variants. Right here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 variants. Well, really, we know there's about 13. There may be a few on here that he's not listed. Oh, well, that's because he doubled the epsilon up with the B1427 and the B1429. So we can go to next strand real quick and get into that, and you'll see the same thing with next strand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then of course we have the one that's not named yet, so we'll say 11. And then you have the migrational patterns of those viruses from 2019 all the way up into 2021, going from left to right in next strand. And if you're unfamiliar and this is your first time ever watching Science with Sean, I introduced Next Strand to a bunch of people. Next Strand tracks variants. This is what they do. This is a real-time variant tracker. If I press play right here, right, by pressing play, you will begin to see the original variant, the original virus begin to create variants as the virus goes into other parts of the world. Just watch. This is still the original. And this, yep. And watch. Now you're in the UK, you're in all these other places, and it's moving. The original variant, which we're protected against, by the way. We're protected against the majority of these. Even the Delta. Look, Alpha shows up. All right. And Alpha becomes the dominant strand somewhere around March of 2020 in the UK. And now you're getting ready to see another one. There you go. Beta. All right. So now we got Alpha. Now we got Beta. Both hitting like a bullet. Now we got Epsilon. Right? South Africa. Now we got Iota. Right? Why? We got Delta. Delta in India. We had another one up here. Right? Oh, we got more. Now it's becoming more common. Why is it becoming more common? Because the original virus has entered places it was not before. And as the virus continues to find new hosts, it enters atmospheres, or I don't think atmosphere, no, I ain't gonna say atmosphere, that's a bad word, but it enters places that it was not before. So now it is adapting, it is finding new hosts, and in finding new hosts, it is adjusting and mutating. It's going through a real-time evolutionary process. This is how we know evolution is real, because we can look at bacteria and viruses and see it. This goes back to, Unc's favorite boy, who I ain't gonna mention right now because I mentioned that he gonna try to get on the show and want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about his best friend. All right, so let's move forward. Now, I really killed 2 of his claims already. If you're not paying attention to it, but I'm gonna slow it down. Okay, so this is a really good article, but I don't want to focus primarily on this. I just wanted to open people's eyes on what variants are and how they emerge, and how viruses mutate. So we should know this because we've talked about this before. So next line, viral evolution 101, why the coronavirus has changed as it has and what it means going forward. So Stat News article, it's pretty much backing up the other one. It's talking about the greater fear of variants. But this paragraph right here is important. It says, that's not to say variants won't impair immune protection. Already, it appears Delta is causing breakthrough infections in symptomatic cases at higher rates than other variants, but vaccines have shown they don't lose much at protecting people from hospitalization and death, no matter the variant they're up against. The way the vaccines work leaves experts optimistic that mutations won't suddenly leave everyone vulnerable again. Says, I don't think that we'll end up with variants that completely escape antibodies or vaccine-induced immunity, said virologist Florence Kramer of Mount Sinai School of Medicine. Already, Kramer said, we've seen the immune system's ability to neutralize viral variant drop to the greatest degree with the beta variant, but it still persists. Because of that, vaccines haven't lost major steps at protecting people from the worst outcomes of COVID. This is why I don't need no booster yet. Something unexpected could happen, scientists caution. Another twist in the pandemic full of them. Already, they've had to reassess their thinking about the coronavirus evolution. This family of viruses proofreads itself as it replicates, which means it picks up mutations more slowly than viruses like influenza. For the first several months of the pandemic, the virus didn't seem to be changing in dramatic ways, but now variants are dominating the conversation. This virus has been surprising us. Lorenzo Redondo, a molecular biologist of Northwestern University School of Medicine, says, below stat outlines a key question about the virus evolution and what it means going forward. Why does the virus keep getting more transmissible? All right, so when the coronavirus started circulating in 2019, it already quit the spreader. Cases in Wuhan imposed what were jaw-dropping lockdowns, but the virus people were a new host, changing RNA genome, enabled to infect our cells, replicate inside them, and jump to other people. But the pathogen hadn't had much of a chance to figure out us yet. The pathogen has now figured us out. See, that's why. Now, that meant that there were a low-hanging fruit mutations that the virus could pick up and that it would give it a competitive advantage over the interactions of the virus. Now, it's not that the virus was knowingly figuring out which mutations would make it better, or make it a better spreader, but the virus made copies of itself. Sometimes it made copies in errors. And by chance, some of the errors gave it a boost over its siblings, helping it outcompete them. All right. Now it talks about the D614G led to a strand was better at spreading at the time, and now you have basically a dominant variant, which would be Alpha, appeared to jump on the scene, and then Alpha faded, and Delta began to take over the notions. So one way to think about virus transmissibility is on a curve. One that rises fast and tapers off toward a peak, right? We haven't hit the peak of Delta. So some scientists have questions whether Delta is so transmissible that the virus might be nearing the flatter part of the curve. So they're trying to predict when we hit the peak for Delta. Now, like I said, I got all the sources in the description of the video. I'm just only trying to hit on certain points because I am taking away the feet or the voice of our brother in the video, in the TikTok video. So moving forward, SARS-CoV-2 variant spike mutations and immune escape, because he talked about the virus is being able to escape the immune system and doing all of those things. So I'm gonna hit the abstract. So most mutations in severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS-CoV-2 genome are expected to be either deleterious and swiftly purge or relatively neutral. A small portion will affect functional properties and may alter infectivity, disease severity, or interactions with host immunity. The emergence of SARS-CoV-2 in late 2019 was followed by a period of relative evolutionary stasis lasting about 11 months. Since late 2020, however, SARS-CoV-2 evolution has been characterized by the emergence of set mutations. In the context of variation of concern, that impact virus characteristics, including transmissibility and antigenicity, probably in response to the changing immune profile of the human population. There's an emergent evidence of reduced neutralization of some SARS-CoV-2 variants by post-vaccination serum. However, a greater understanding of correlates of protection is required to evaluate how this may impact vaccine effectiveness. Nonetheless, manufacturers are preparing platforms for possible updates of vaccine sequencing. This is what makes mRNA powerful. They're able to retool mRNA to handle any variant that comes our way, and they're able to do it in real time and make it fast. It must be raining outside. So basically, in this article, it deals with 143 million infections and more than 3 million deaths worldwide. It talks about the global pandemic in its gist, but it also was talking about the lineages and the evolutionary of the variants and the spike mutations, and how certain variants can escape the immune system. Now, what is saying is this article is saying that what I've been saying, like the Delta variant has the ability to escape certain parts of the immune system, not the immune system in its total. Now, where it's able to not escape, but evade certain parts of the immune system, this is where you can potentially have breakthrough infections. And the breakthrough infections may be very minor, rare, severely. What's I'm saying rare or severe. So you have that going on. Hold on, let me plug my laptop up my bed. All right, now, so the extent of which mutations affecting the antigenic phenotype of SARS-CoV-2 will enable variants to circumvent immunity conferred by natural infection or vaccination remains to be determined. However, there's growing evidence that mutations that change the antigenic phenotype of SARS-CoV-2 are circulating and affect immune recognition to a degree that requires immediate attention. And despite protein mediates attachment at the virus to host cell surface receptors and fusions between virus and cell membranes, it is also the principal target of neutralizing antibodies generated following infection by SARS-CoV-2 and the SARS-CoV-2 component of both mRNA and adenovirus-based vaccines licensed for use and others awaiting regulatory approval. Consequently, mutations that affect the antigenicity of the spike protein are particularly important. In the review, they explore literature on the mutations and their antigenic consequences, focus on the spike protein and antibody-mediated immunity, and discuss them in context of observed mutation frequencies in global sequence database. So they deal with the spike protein and the early mutations of that, and they deal with the variations. You see all of these numbers, you know, they're talking about variants, and they're talking about the ACE binding receptors and all of that, because you start to get, you see the Y453F, B11298, B1141, different variations, right? These subunits, and just how the vaccines are handling that. And then, but the brother that was speaking in the video was trying to make it seem like the vaccines, the variants, well, the variants was just dominating the immune system and making it seem like being vaccinated was craziness. Well, that's further from the truth. And let's continue in the argument. Immune evasion means we need a new COVID-19 social contract. Published in the Lancet. So I just put this in here to kind of strengthen the argument, but it's really only going to back up everything else that's going on. This is pretty much, it's not a lot of information. It's not a study, so I really don't want to read it, but I'm gonna give you a piece of it that I think that is important because it's talking about immune evasion, right? In a funny way. Well, not really in a funny way, but in geeky terms. So studies suggest that the emergence and the spread of SARS-CoV-2 variants is correlated with the absence of robust immune protection after first exposure to previous wild-type viruses, or even to vaccine. The evolution associated with the emergence of immune escape mutants has not only been observed with SARS-CoV-2, but also with other viruses. So I wanted to make that point. It's not just SARS-CoV-2 that has this immune escape game going on. It's actually other viruses. So to make this seem like this was something new was a little disingenuous. So such evolution might be assisted by warning that the immune system, and notably the antibody response. The rapid arrival of SARS-CoV-2 variants, such as variants first identified in South Africa and Brazil, suggest a so-called natural immune evasion. Also, the dynamics of natural or vaccinal collective immunity in the regions where these variants emerge might have placed substantial pressure on the viral ecosystem, facilitating the emergence of a variant with enhanced transmissibility. Now, if this substantial immune evasion occurs, current vaccines are likely to still offer some benefit to individuals. At the population level, however, they could induce viral selection and escape, making the prospect of achieving herd immunity increasingly remote. So he played the game a little bit about teetering and acting like immune evasion was a big deal, but he never brought this back to this happens in other vaccines. This whole focus is about herd immunity and vaccines anyway. So we need a better plan to come up with to subside the ignorance, because if we just let politicians speak or religious zealots speak, we're not going to get anywhere strengthening the argument. He mentioned gain of function. In short, gain of function research refers to serial passaging of the microorganism to increase their transmissibility, virulence, immunogenicity, and host tropism by applying selective pressure to a culture. You heard him mention applying certain pressure to a culture, and he's saying this is what's triggering these variants. He never mentioned that the virus has the ability to adapt and mutate based on its evolutionary principles. He went directly into saying that that SARS-CoV-2, the virus, has some type of gain of functionality in it. You heard it in the video. However, I'm not going to get into the back and forth of the debate about that gain of function thing. I'm going to read this last line to you. Okay. Regardless of the true origin of SARS-CoV-2, the pandemic has demonstrated that global infrastructure is largely unprepared for such an outbreak, and many scientists argue that gain-of-function research could have predicted and allowed the world to be better prepared for an outbreak. Because they didn't have the gain-of-function working, and they didn't have the data that was required for them to be prepared to fight this novel virus, we were behind. And scientists are arguing that they couldn't do their job in predicting and studying and working on gain of function research because it was taken away. So how, and then you go back to what Unc said in the conversation we had with Jack on mental dialogue in reference to the lineage lines. There were two lineage lines for the virus that people don't talk about. In layman's terms, there was two lineages, an A lineage and a B lineage, that did not come out of the lab and make its way toward Wuhan. It is shown making its way toward the lab toward the lab, meaning that it came from outside the lab naturally. Okay, when we look at the RBD, right? When we look at the RBD and we see on the RBD a slightly difference in the spike, but also the RBD protein area, that little protein area right there, the little vessel that changed. That's how we know the variant changes. But we know all of that because of we got 3D images of all the virus, the variants, my bad. So speaking of that, let's transition into what is a variant, because he brought up these super variants and all of this craziness. Now, I'm not going to play the 26-minute video of Vincent Racaniello explaining the variants and why people need to chill the hell out. But I am going to give you a little bit about what a variant is. All right. Now, in layman's term, a variant is a mutation of the original virus. A variant is a mutation of original virus. So you have the Wuhan virus. The Wuhan virus gets to the UK, South Africa, South America, and then you have different versions of the original virus. Once you get a different version of the original virus, that is called a variant. Here we go. I'm gonna skip the top part of this. No, I'm not. Many virology terms are being used these days by people who do not understand their meaning. Included are journalists, medical doctors, scientists, lawyers, and people from all walks of life. In normal times, the word misusage would be so rare that it would not matter. However, because we are in a viral pandemic that affects nearly everyone, I will attempt to explain the meaning of virus isolates, variants, and strands. Many of the terms used in virology are ill-defined. They have no universally accepted definitions, and there is no Bible with the correct meaning. As each of us are trained by other virologists, we hear them using terms in certain contexts and we copy their usage, whether or not it is correct. I learned many good things from my mentors, but also many things that are wrong. Nevertheless, certain terms should have specific meanings. So let's move forward. He'll start with virus isolates. This is important. He says because it's the easiest to define. An isolate is the name for a virus that we have isolated from an infected host and propagated it in culture. The first isolate of SARS-CoV-2 were obtained from patients with pneumonia in Wuhan in late 2019. Virus isolates is a very basic term that implies nothing except that the virus was isolated from an infected host. Virus variant is an isolate whose genome sequence differs from that of a reference virus. No inference is made about whether the change in genome sequence causes any change in the phenotype of the virus. The meaning of variant has become clouded in the area of whole viral genome sequencing because nearly every isolate may have a slightly different genome sequence, such as in the case of SARS-CoV-2. Nearly every sequence from a different person is slightly different. And unfortunately, mainstream media, following the footsteps of scientists who really should know better, have been using the term strand to describe what are actually variants. Now, a virus strand is a variant that possesses unique and stable phenotypic characteristics, such as characteristics can only be ascertained by the results of experiments done in laboratories. Now, in cells and cultures and in animals, coupled with the observation made in infected humans. The name strand is not easily earned. Certainly, it cannot simply be given by journalists. All right. Viral strands are few and far between. It is a designation highly desired, but given sparingly. A retrovirologist recently assured me that there is only one strand of HIV, one. The Lancing strand of poliovirus is derived from a human isolate that was passaged 99 times in mice until it acquired the ability to infect that species. That strand has demonstrably different properties from the human strand. Now, I'm not going to get into serotypes, genotypes, and clades. That gets a little bit too cloudy, but the brother in the video brought up variants and stuff like that, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. To add, we're going to get into something else that he mentioned: COVID-19 vaccine, modes of immune activation, and future challenges. And here he said that the vaccine inactivates your innate immune system. That's what he says. He said the vaccine turns off, I'm making it general, turns off your innate immune system. That's what he says in the video. Now, let me do this. Triggering an innate and adaptive response. To stimulate adaptive immunity, a vaccine requires a pathogen-specific immunogen as well as an adjuvant. The latter stimulates the innate immune system and provides the necessary second signal for the T cell activation. In the very first part of this, it kills the guy in the video. It says, to stimulate adaptive immunity, a vaccine requires a pathogen-specific immunogen as well as an adjuvant. The latter stimulates the innate immune system and provides the necessary second signal for T cell activation. Let's continue. An optimal adjuvant stimulates innate immunity without inducing systemic inflammation that could elicit severe side effects. For mRNA vaccines, the mRNA can serve as both immunogen and an adjuvant, owing to intrinsic immunostimulator properties of RNA. Upon entry into cells, single-stranded RNA and double-stranded RNA are recognized by various endosomal and cytolytic innate sensors that form a critical part of the innate immune response to viruses. It ends with the dagger, a critical part of the innate immune response to viruses. And then it goes on and says, I ain't got to read that second part. There's something else that I wanted to get out of here. All right, so there was an example used earlier, and then it just comes down and deals with the adaptive immunity system again. But the point of this article is the refutation of him stating that the vaccines turn off the innate immune system, and that is not what the vaccine does. The vaccine does not turn the innate part of the immune system off. It's aiding in, it's training in, it's working with, it is building. So this kills that. Modes of immune activation and future challenges, right? And look, just in this black part right here, look what it says. The new vaccine SARS-CoV-2 are novel in terms of specific. Their wide dissemination across the global population and inclusion of newly licensed mRNA platforms. We discuss here how the approved vaccines trigger innate immunity. We discuss here how approved vaccines trigger innate immunity to promote durable immunological memory and consider the future implications of protecting populations with these vaccines. Let's move on. So the durability of I ain't going. I'm on this at this point. If you haven't caught on to what I'm doing, I'm walking you down every claim in his video as he makes those claims. So I'm at the earlier portion of his video. He says so much in the first 45 seconds and a minute and 30 something seconds. It was crazy. All right, so durability of mRNA 1273 vaccine induced antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 variants. He mentioned earlier that the variant that these vaccines don't stop these variants. So in this article and abstraction, it talks about the different variants and how the vaccine-induced protection immune response, particularly as antibodies teeter wane over time. He says, here we assess the impact of SARS-CoV-2 variants. So it talks about the protection and how they wane. And then it says, at the peak of response, the second vaccine dose, all individuals had responses to all variants. Right here. At the peak of response to the second dose, all individuals had responses to all variants. Binding and functional antibodies against variants persisted in most subjects, albeit at lower levels, for 6 months after the primary series of mRNA vaccine. Across all assays, B1351 had the lowest antibody recognition. These data complement ongoing studies to inform the potential need for additional boost vaccines. So, against all the variants is protected, even Delta. He made the claim that the variants were going in all of the places. Now, I'll play it again for the people. But what I'm telling you, you're going to understand and know what I'm doing here is killing the argument. Now, he talked about immune evasion of SARS-CoV-2 with emerging variants. So I'm going to read you the conclusion to a 17-page paper that was written. Remember, everything is in the chat. It's going to be able to line up exactly with what this dude was running away with. He says, as long as a significant number of world population is infected with SARS-CoV-2 mutations will continue to occur because of the huge number of genome replications and the error-prone replication. Therefore, new variants will continue to emerge, and some of them may pose a greater risk for immune escape. A selective pressure of adaptive immunity was minimal in the primarily naive world population. So most of the variants now present are the result of mutations derived by selection based on fitness advantage. The selective pressure for escape variants will probably increase as herd immunity is approached. In addition, the co-circulation of major variants in the same geographical region already seen in many parts of the world may enable recombination. Remember, he used the word recombination, bringing together mutations responsible for different consequences. Thus, the emergence of variants capable of immune evasion seems inevitable, and it will be important to evolve pandemic countermeasures accordingly. It says, while present research on the possible immune escape of emerging VOX is still offering encouragement, there are several courses of action that can be undertaken in order to effectively subdue the pandemic. First, closely monitor emergence of novel SARS variants. All right, and recognize the potential of immune escape. For full comprehension of immunity against novel variants, it would be essential to understand the immunogenicity of different spike domains, as well as the role of non-neutralizing antibodies in cellular immunity. Vaccination protocols should be adjusted to always include 2 doses without delay of the second, since high neutralization titers could be crucial in protecting against current variants. Finally, an effort should be made to modify currently used vaccines directed at ancestral spike and therapy protocols involving monoclonal antibodies in order to offer reliable protection against emerging variants. So he was talking about immune evasion. We're looking at controlling. You can't stop mutations, but as we seen in the other article, the vaccines are protecting against all variants, even Delta, even with the small amount of breakthrough infections. Let's move on. He mentioned recombinant vaccines. So I'm going to properly define what recombinant vaccines are because he didn't do it in the video. He mentioned it, made it sound slick, but he didn't do it. A recombinant vaccine is a vaccine produced through recombinant DNA technology. When you go back and listen to what he says, when he gets to the point of recombinant vaccine, he makes some errors. Says this involves inserting the DNA encoding an antigen that stimulates an immune response into bacterial or mammalian cells, expressing the antigen in these cells and then purifying it from them.
What is a recombinant vaccine? A virus is a bundle of genetic code surrounded by a shell of proteins. These proteins are what activate the body's immune system. A vaccine activates your immune system ahead of time, so it's ready to fight off that virus before you get sick. A recombinant vaccine uses the proteins of a virus to activate the immune system. These proteins are made in a laboratory by cells that use recombined pieces of the viral genetic code to churn out proteins. These proteins are then injected into the person to activate the immune system. Unlike other vaccines that use viral genetic code or protein shells, recombinant vaccines use only the proteins by themselves. And because they're just proteins, they can't cause disease and they do not need to be kept frozen, making them safe, effective, and easy to deliver. The human papillomavirus, or HPV vaccine, is a recombinant vaccine and the first vaccine to prevent a form of cancer.
All right, so there you have it. Now on to the cardiologist. This dude is not an epidemiologist. He's not an immunologist. He's not a virologist. Yet, if you watch Science with Sean videos, you know we dealt with Peter McCullough. You heard the brother mention Peter McCullough in the video. Well, Peter McCullough has been debunked on several cases. Peter McCullough also is being sued. He violated his Baylor University agreement letter and currently has a court case regarding that. This fact checker dealt with his claims. In the video, he claimed there was no reason for healthy people under the age of 50 to even, be vaccinated. He didn't say don't get vaccinated or anything. Well, he made some bad claims, but we see people in the hospital that were under 40 who are on ECMO machines. People under 40 died. We know 30-year-old people that's dying from it. We know children have passed away from it. This video was shared thousands of times. I don't want to revisit Peter McCullough, but I just wanted to remind people that we've already dealt with him a few videos ago. So if anybody's interested in who haven't seen that, you can go back and watch that and deal with it. And we deal with a bunch of his claims in that video. This is another article regarding a fact checker for Peter McCullough. He, like I said, he was on Fox News spreading misinformation, and he got beat up on that as well. We dealt with next strand already, and we talked about I never really got into evolving threats or new SARS-CoV-2 variants have changed the pandemic. What will the next virus do next? So this is a good article for people who want to read about these variants and what the potential of the next virus will be, because there will be a new one as the population begins to expand out, and in the areas where we have not inhabited the places before, we will come in contact with new variants. New viruses that will be introduced to mankind because of us overpopulating the globe. This is good, a good read for you. I don't want to get too much into all of that, but it's talking about the majority of everything that we've summed up previously. And then my wrap up is on another guy that he mentioned, Gert Vanden Bosch. All right. A European expert claims the COVID vaccines will end humanity. More nonsense, as we prove in this article. Now, Vanden Bosch also is, I think, Sean, what's his dude name? Hold up. Sean Brooks, Dr. Sean Brooks, the Ohio school, another person at an Ohio school event going viral, makes his assertion. And Vanden Bosch says, the vaccine is going to knock everybody off. He's a total anti-vaxxer. He's been fact-checked and debunked. You'll see here. I don't want to get into some of his claims, but the brother in the video brought us Peter McCullough and Vanden Bosch. And here's it in his own words. He says, I'm all but an anti-vaxxer. As a scientist, I do not usually appeal to any platform to make a stand on vaccine-related topics. As a dedicated virologist and vaccine expert, I only make exception when health authorities allow vaccines to be administered in ways that threaten public health, most certainly when scientific evidence is being ignored. The present extremely critical situation forces me to spread this emergency call as unprecedented extent of human intervention in COVID-19 pandemic is now a risk of global catastrophic without equal. This call cannot sound loudly and strong enough. So he says that the vaccine rollout's gonna blow everybody up, pretty much. That's what he says. Vandenbosch has published a scant amount of work, and tellingly, he chooses predatory publishers like Long Dom, owner of a journal Vaccines and Vaccination. His dubious publication is best listed there. It's not peer reviewed and is not appear for scrutiny. He is one of the people who are also getting paid hella money. All right, look who he is aligned with. He says, here's an open question for Vandenbosch. If you're so eager not to be perceived as an anti-vaxxer, why have you climbed into bed with Del Bigtree, Wakefield, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., JNR, who are actively undermining science and all anti-vaccine, emphasis mine at the end. All right, but I want to get this, get this in real quick. And well,
so 10 million people have sent me this letter and video by a Dr. Gert van den Busche, the European fella, who is arguing that our approach to vaccination, mass vaccination with a, quote, prophylactic vaccine during a pandemic is going to destroy civilization and mankind as a species. This is more or less literally what he says in this. And it's terrifying. And there's big scientific words. And he makes this very compelling sounding case that everything we're doing is wrong. What I'm going to do today is tell you why actually his very case makes the case for why mass vaccination is the answer to solving this pandemic and preventing exactly what he's saying. All right, let's start at the beginning. Who is this guy? So if you've seen the video, again, 1 million people have sent it to me. He presents himself or is presented as a world vaccine expert whose credibility and legacy is being put on the line because he's making a dissenting statement. And in his letter that he released on LinkedIn and Twitter, which, as we know, are the highest quality scientific journals, he says something to the effect of, nobody's listening. All the vested interests want mass vaccination. They need to prove me wrong before another vaccine is given. They need to halt the global campaign of mass vaccination or else. Now, of course, it's insanity because you don't come out as a dissenter and say, prove me wrong or else halt everything you're doing. Falsify me. No, the burden is on you to prove that you're right, brother. And this is what he's saying. First of all, who is he? This is important because you can always, and it's important because the anti-vax crowd has taken this guy and elevated him, of course, because his sentiment is entirely anti-current vaccine, even though he starts his whole screed by saying, I am not an anti-vaxxer, which, by the way, should be a trigger for you that every single anti-vaxxer starts their statement with that statement. Whereas you will never hear Paul Offit start his statement with, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but because he doesn't need to, because everyone knows his vaccine credentials, right? So this guy is being trumpeted as an expert, but who is he? He's a veterinary medicine doctor, so he's not a human doctor, but he does have postdoctoral training and PhD in virology. He's worked in various institutions, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Gavi, and as project managers and supervisors in certain pharmaceutical companies in the vaccine space. So he has experience in vaccines. There's no doubt about it. Is he a world expert on it? Well, it's impossible to tell because he hasn't really published extensively on vaccines that I can find. He's done conferences and things like that, but he claims he has, this thing in the works for a natural killer cell vaccine, but I can't seem to find any patents or anything like that. Now, prove me wrong on that. That's fine. So let's assume he has some credentials, even though, again, and remember, it fits this narrative of this very romantic figure of the mad vaccine scientist who no one's listening to, who's right about this thing. Now, what's he saying he's right about? And the rest of the world is wrong. He's saying that when you have a pandemic and the coronavirus is replicating everywhere, things like lockdowns, viral mitigation, things like masks, trying to slow the spread of the virus, and vaccines are going to cause the opposite effect, because what you're doing is you're preventing people from developing natural immunity that isn't necessarily purely antibody based. It has other aspects of innate immunity like natural killer cells and T cells and things like that that can prevent infection, and we should be allowing that. Basically, his philosophy is let it rip. He actually calls it a harmless virus. So now already you can start to go, well, okay, so can this guy be right about it being a harmless virus when more than 500,000 Americans are dead, and then also be right about what he's saying? So start to question logically the cohesion of what he's saying, right? So he's saying it's a harmless virus. It ought to just be allowed to basically replicate, and then we should use other strategies like his natural killer cell vaccine, which isn't developed, isn't offered, and isn't ready, and may not even be a thing. So that's his take, and he says by vaccinating during a pandemic, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, the virus is everywhere. It's not like the virus is rare and we're trying to prevent a rare virus. We're vaccinating in the midst of a rapidly replicating virus. What you're doing is you're creating an antibody defense with the vaccine that he claims does not prevent the virus from actually replicating in vaccinated people, does not prevent asymptomatic shedding of virus in vaccinated people. And therefore, you are putting selective evolutionary pressure on the virus to evade the vaccine defense and mutate, and you select for mutations that then escape vaccine, these vaccine escape variants. And he's saying in the setting of this, when there's so much viral replication, the vaccine is going to encourage these variants to occur, and these variants are going to be vastly more dangerous, deadly, and plague-like than the current natural pandemic, which should have just been allowed basically to unfold, is what you're reading between the lines of what he's saying. And therefore, mass vaccination is a crime, more or less, he's saying. He's actually saying that directly. And we need to halt it immediately because it's going to cause disaster. So and then he gets into very microscopic details of, okay, here's the natural killer cell response. He makes a few claims in this that we need to talk about. Are they?
Now, I'm not going to get into the rest of the video. I wanted y'all to hear that part out because in an earlier video, you've already heard me address the natural killer cell thing. Chill, if you're watching it, this is where your boy gets his argument. He gets his argument from Vanden Bosch, quacked out. And if y'all was paying attention, this whole list of people right here are all doctors who are quacked out over here on the right-hand side. Like I said, the article is listed in the description of the video, ladies and gentlemen. In the description of my videos are all the links. Anybody that want to just go and finish the rest of this video out, you can. My whole purpose is to not defeat, but refute the information that was provided by this gentleman who gave us Peter McCullough and Van Bach, who are both quacked out with credentials in the wrong subject matter, because neither one of them are in the actual field. Because they have doctor by their name, people will take or gravitate to it. But what people aren't doing is vetting who they're getting the information from. Therefore, you have a 2-minute and 54-second video take approximately an hour and 10 minutes or so to deal with. On that note, y'all know what I'm about to do. And we'll be back for the Chill Her review this afternoon. Oh, don't think I ain't addressed all his points. All his points were addressed. Every single one of his points was addressed. The mask, the death, and all of that, that's just fictitious. Use your logic. What vaccine that ever rolled out in history 5 years later, people fall over, or 10 years? Well, I might be speaking about Sean at this particular time, but people just croaking out. Like that medical doctor that he claimed toward the end of the video, Vanden Bosch, was just refuted point for point. And I don't understand how people aren't fact checking this stuff. How are you getting information sent to you by people and they're relying on TikTok to educate them? Vanden Bosch is making millions of dollars misinforming people. He is one of many of these so-called doctors that's supposed to be in the field, but they're not. He's doing some whole other work. So on that note, man, I'm out, man. I'll catch y'all in a little bit on the comeback. We're going to get into Chill Hair review. Hopefully Chill is available. Shima Moto.